नाम विनीता फर्तियाल है और मैं यहाँ बीरबल साहनी इंस्टीट्यूट में साइंटिस्ट सीनियर साइंटिस्ट हूँ. In the talk today, I'll be talking about the third pole. Third pole region is a very interesting region, and this is a very new term. As you know, we all are aware about the North Pole and the South Pole, but the third pole is also there. So in BSIP, we are doing research in this area, and because the third pole area that is in India, like within the boundaries of India, is Ladakh. So I'll be talking about what researches are going on there, and how are they important and how are they challenging and so on. So as I just said that we already knew that Arctic and Antarctic are the poles, but Ladakh and the Tibetan area, Tibetan plateau area is also known as a pole, third pole, not because it has some kind of a magnetic field or something, but because this area is has the largest amount of fresh water reserves outside the polar areas. So if you see the map here, what you see in the black region is the entire hydrological boundary of the third pole. So in this third pole is very important because 10 major rivers of the of this part of the world are originating here. You can see the Indus River, the Ganga River, the Brahmaputra, the Iravati, Mekong, Salween, Yellow, Amudarya, and Tarim River. They come out from this area, this high area, and then they are feeding to about 1.3 billion people, across it. So this polar region is very important. This third pole region is very important, and more because it has a global ecological buffer. It's a buffer zone, and enormous number of socio-economic and cultural diversity you can see here. Here the ethnic communities, they reside here. It's rich in natural resources and diversity. It's a diversity hotspot and has a huge population. And we are worried about a cryosphere, which is the frozen water that we have on the planet, whether it's in the poles or it's in the third pole. And all the basic elements of the cryosphere you can find in this region, be it in the form of glaciers, in the form of ice, in the form of permafrost. So this is the importance of the area. So this is Ladakh, a newly formed union territory, and a team of scientists in BSIP, they are working in this area on various aspects of landscape evolution, paleoclimatic studies. This area as an analog for Mars, astrobiology studies also, and astrogeology studies also. And for these, I'll give you some examples of some of our work that are ongoing. So as far as the geomorphology is basically, what the landform looks like. So when you go to this high altitude, cold, arid desert, here I call it high altitude because it's here the altitudes we are talking about, altitudes over 3,000 meters above sea level. So everything is above 3,000 meters. So it is above the tree line. You won't see trees there unless and until it's planted by us and we're taking care of it. This is an arid desert because it has 6 months of the summer season, but 6 months everything is surrounded by snow. So it has lots of glaciers, and when you go there, and you'll see these U-shaped valleys, which are glacial valleys. Then we have lots of deflected stream courses. Then lots of fan toe cutting, abandoned channels, and fill terraces, and debris cones, and you'll see lots of loose material from the slopes because physical weathering is in abundance there, and there is lots of shattered rock present everywhere. So this is the kind of view that you see when you go to Ladakh. In Ladakh, our main research is on the climatic studies, the paleoclimatic studies, and for that the best archive is the sediment. So we go there and see these lake sediments, and we bring in the sediments and analyze them for a multi-proxy studies. So we go and collect the sediments from the glacial lake areas. Then we also in Ladakh, you have abundant paleo lake sediments. So that these are exposed lakes. They were lakes once upon a time. That is why we call it paleo. And this particular picture is of Lama Yuru, and it's also called the moonland, because people, when they saw it for the first time, they said, "Oh wow, that looks like a moon. Like it has a lunar topography." So it's also called moonland. And so we are working on these exposed lake sediments also. And what we do is we bring in samples to our lab, and we do a very kind of a multi-proxy analysis on the sediments that are collected layer by layer, centimeter by centimeter, and then we analyze it for the physical proxies, for the chemical proxies, for the biotic proxies, and whatever the result comes, we just combine it together and then say something about the climate. And today, that we can date these sediments. We can have the exact date on which the sediment was deposited down time. So we can have records of 10,000 to present. For in this particular panel, you see the record is from 4,000 to 266 years before present. So we can accurately tell the climatic disturbances or climatic variations right from 4,000 years to present. So this kind of a study, this is just one example. We have done it in the Trans Himalayas. Now, Trans Himalayas are there, then Tethan Himalayas are there. If we're coming north to south, then there are the Outer Himalayas. So, the work in the Trans and Tethan Himalayas are has been done very elaborately, and you can see in this uh, not only the regional climatic fluctuations, but we also try to link it with the forcings, with the North Atlantic forcing by the ISF, Indian Summer Monsoon forcing. And this is a recent paper in Paleo 3, which says how the North Atlantic forcing it dominated till 2,600 years ago, and after that the Indian monsoon is also coming to that side. So otherwise, this particular area of Ladakh is westerly dominated, or it has the winter monsoon, and the ISM or the Indian summer monsoon hardly reaches there because it is the rain shadow zone and very high altitude. So, apart from the paleoclimatic studies, the other studies are on the cave deposits. You have beautiful caves interlinked there, showing the human presence in the prehistoric time. And we have tried to do some chemical fingerprinting of these deposited coatings over the cave surfaces. They are like black. And then the scanning electron microscopy, the IR spectroscopy, Raman spectroscopy. So we have done many kinds of analysis on these to say whether it is a chemical phenomena or they are really formed by the human influence there in that time. And apart from there, the entire valleys of that area, because Indus is the backbone of that, Indus River is the backbone of Ladakh. So all its tributaries, channels have been, digitized, and they've seen have been studied by morphotectonic analysis, and we have a very good morphotectonic data also, showing that that area, the suture zone, and the suture zone is still active. It was active during the quaternary also, along the thrusts that like the Stoke thrust, and the zone itself, and the Karakoram fault in the northern side. And then as I said, like we have permafrost there because it's the third pole, and as I just said that this area has has the highest reserve of fresh water in a frozen condition. The cryosphere is very active here, but due to the warming trend that we are seeing in our globe today, this is like kind of depleting, and we are losing this active layer, which we used to find at 30 centimeters. We are now finding at 70 centimeters. Basically, permafrost is the frozen soil that has remained as such for several years, so it hasn't melted that soil. You can see in the pictures how black, and it's like ice and snow. Even the JCB teeth cannot like break it or dig through it. It's so hard. It's rock hard. So, and in these glacial lakes, we do find diatoms, and which tell us about the ecology of these lakes. And downtime, if we go, we can see how the ecological conditions have changed. Similarly, thecamabians, which are the heterotrophs, they do tell us about the ecology. And some pollen and spores are also found, which tell us about the aeolian activity, because we know that Ladakh is the area where you won't find any trees, but we are finding pollens and spores of some species of trees. So we can say that the wind direction is either from the south, from Himachal, the things are coming in, and or from the west, from Jammu Kashmir, the greener part of the Kashmir, the aeolian activity is there. Then, as we know, to study a downpour, it is very important to study the surface first, because as of today, when you go to the field, you know the temperature, you know the pressure, you know the precipitation of today, you know the sun's intensity, and then if you're collecting samples of this year, so you have these. Physical parameters also, so you can build an analog. So in this temperature, in this precipitation, a certain kind of community is residing, whether it is thecamabians, algae, or angiosperms, the pinus that we see in an area. So to build these analog data, so modern samples are also being worked at in the sites that we are studying for paleoclimate. And you can see in this picture, it's figure that shows it's a combination of all the sections that our team has studied, and of course some other research teams have also studied some lakes like Sokar and Somarari. These are big saline lakes in the area, and our focus was mainly in the glacial lakes, whether it's from the Janskar, the Ladakh range, and the Indus Valley. So what we see here is we can see that the climatic variations are seen, because this is like this could be across east to west. If I just take it, it would be 180 kilometers. So in a range of a regional picture of the climate of that area is seen in the figure, and we see that although the climate has been cold throughout, but there have been warm pulses in between, and a major change is seen at 2600 to 2700, when the westerlies are being dominated by the ISF. And we also try to do some of the temporal cultural studies by studying the corpulite material that we got in the caves, and that paper is also published. And then we could and with a review of the past archaeological data by several researchers, we could do a review of that, and we could divide the last 5,000 years into four temporal cultural phases, and in which we could get the petroglyphs, the settlements, the charcoal, the charred bones, and the figurine. So this was such kind of work is also going on in BSIP. Now, the last part of my talk is Ladakh as a terrestrial analog of Mars. Like if you see this picture, it's not snow, it's brine, it's the Sokar Lake. It's more of a wetland today, and it's a big, huge area, flat area, and all this is salt crust over the surface. And this is very, very important to study the halophiles, that is the microbes that live, that love the salinity. Yeah. So, but before that, what is analog site, or why do we study these terrestrial analog sites? Because they help us to understand the geological process on Earth, and which can be extrapolated to the solar system bodies in order to interpret and validate the data received from the orbiters and the planetary rovers. We all know that we cannot go to Mars today, but we can study Mars because we know that these features are found in our Earth, and these are formed by certain processes. And if we see it in the satellite images, so we can at least guess or tell them that in Earth these features are forming because of these processes, and then we can extrapolate them to the Mars and understand the Mars better. And these are also analog sites are also important for optimizing scientific and technological needs of explorations in robotic and manned missions on Mars. And then they are best suited to test the instruments for exobiological researchers. And then you can live in seclusion there. You are isolated there. So if we have some manned mission to Mars someday, so you have to live alone for years. So this kind of trains the astronaut to lots of hot springs here, where which are very good to study the thermophiles, that is the organisms which live in high temperatures. Here, these are the Puga and the Panamic Chumathang hot springs, where the water is like 84 degrees centigrade. It's like boiling hot. And then on the other hand, in the same terrain, we have very low temperatures, like the permafrost regions, because you have the glaciers and the frozen lakes. In winters, you have the frozen waterfalls, and here the psychrophiles, which thrive at very low temperatures, can be studied. And this is a new thing that our institute is venturing into. So Ladakh is a place where psychrophiles, thermophiles, halophiles can be studied in one place. I'll just show you two more slides of how the resemblance, the surface resemblance of what we see in Ladakh and what we see in Mars. So this is an impact. Right hand side is an impact crater where you could see a small alluvial plain there. And then because we understand the alluvial plains in Ladakh formed in the same way, we know what is the slope angle, how much is the spread and all. So we can at least with the satellite image of Mars, we can see how this would have been formed. Okay, and similarly in the lower picture at Peace Vallis at Gale crater, this was the landing site of Curiosity rover, and here also you can see the alluvial fan, how beautiful it is. Similarly, gullies, yeah. So you these are the pictures from the These are the Martian gullies at the right panel, showing the narrow channels and the associated downslope sediment deposited, and seeing that they are like the steep sleeves. And similarly, these are the left hand panel. We Similar things are seen in Ladakh, and we know that when the slopes are covered with ice, and when the melt season comes, the finer particles they trickle down, and such gullies are formed. So we can say that water is needed to form such gullies. So in Mars, there has to be water at some point of time when these gullies will form there. So this is kind of how we, correlate the analog studies. So Ladakh, whether it's the geomorphological fidelity or the geochemical or the exobiological, it is fit to be an analog of Mars. And people are trying to build a station there, especially Amity University. And with this I conclude my talk, and thank you all for your patience listening. Thank you.